Hi, my name is Paul Hopkinson and welcome to my watercolour studio. Now this is the place where I create all the paintings for my members on Patreon, and that's all of these here as you can see, and many more as well. So let me give you a guided tour today of the painting area and the computer area, and not forgetting, the lighting as well, and also the camera. So let me show you things today I don't normally show people. So come on in and let me give you a guided tour. Now the board which I paint on is something people ask me a lot about, and that's this one here as you can see. It's on a bit of a slight angle. If I just give you the angle of this one so you know what angle it's on. And this is roughly about, as you can see, 13 degrees, the angle of this board. So to be honest with you, all you need to think about doing is putting something like a house brick underneath one end of the board, well my cables are there. Okay, just a little house brick, something like that, or a block of wood. And then that'll give us something of a similar sort of height and angle, which I tend to work on when I'm working on this board. And all you really need is something like a sheet of plywood. This board is A2 in size. If I get my tape measure and measure this for you so you can just see what I've got, 86 centimetres or just under 34 inches in length. And then the height of this, about 50 centimetres, which is about 20 inches, something like that. Give us some general ideas. So roughly about A2 in size for this board, and I do like working with that sort of size. I did extend this one. This is one I bought originally from an art shop, but then I kind of built on top of it and kind of built it out a little bit more by adding an extension just on one side here. So all you need is a piece of plywood and a block of wood or a couple of bricks, anything like that, to give yourself a painting surface. Now don't forget to click on like and subscribe down below, because when I put another video here on YouTube for you to watch, you shouldn't miss it. Now, people very often say to me, Paul, what's all this stuff you got on your table here? What's that? What is it? This is anti-slip. So I'll just show you what I mean. And all this is this stuff here. There's your black version and there's your white version. There you go. And I think there's probably other ones on the market. Very rubbery, so therefore it grips just about anything that you place on top of it. I also tend to occasionally use this within the workshop as well. So it's well worth having some of that on your painting surface, just to make sure you've got a bit of a kind of grip to it. So when you put your brushes on there, anything like these old brushes I've got here, look, there you go. They're not going to kind of slide down the board because you've got your board on that slight angle there. So well worth having some anti-slip. Now people very often say to me, Paul, what do you use kind of paint from? What do you put your reference photographs on? I've got a very old Samsung Galaxy Tab. It's about 10 years old, something like that now. I like to use a tablet because of the simple fact it's on an iPad. You can pinch into the reference photograph, depending on the size of the photo, obviously. Make sure it's a very, very large photo. So you can pinch into all them lovely details there and see what you can see. But that's the beauty about that. The downfall about a tablet, well, this old one anyway, is that I can't change the colours. So if the colours are slightly off, or the contrast is slightly off, what I'll do, I'll alter the colours a little bit more on my computer screen first, and then, from the computer over there, I'll send it to Dropbox or my Google Photographs or OneDrive, anything like that, then pick it up on my tablet here. And that's how I tend to work it. You see, then I've got a lightened version of my reference photograph I can then use for doing my painting of this lovely cockerel. There you go. Or should I say rooster? You tell me. Now, you know when you get a failed painting or something which is destined for the bin, save it, don't throw it away. Whatever you do, don't throw it away. Save all the sheets of paper that you've got and then cut them up into scrap testing sheets like this. And this is what I've done for this painting here, as you can see. This I can work out the colours before I make a start on the painting. So all I simply do, I chop them all up like that, make myself a little card holder, which I've just got down the back there with all my cables, to give us some ideas what I tend to do. And then I use them for testing out before I make a start, as I said. So well worth saving your old scrap watercolour sheets, okay? And if you're paintings which are destined for the bin, don't throw them away whatever you do. Now, pens and pencils is something which is a personal thing, really. I know it really is, isn't it? And what I tend to use for the pens and pencils is, this is a Faber-Castell one. It's a 0.5 nib and a 2H lead. It's really useful to use, it really is. And because it's a mechanical pencil, I can just press the back of it like that, extend the lead out a little bit more, but that's too far I know. And then I can use that to kind of keep a constant line when I'm drawing something out on the painting. So well worth making sure that you've got a mechanical pencil, something like that. I've also got some other ones in here as well. So my little tiny pot here, hopefully I can focus on all of that. You can see I've actually got my eraser pencils. There you go, or pens, should I say, like an eraser pen. These are Tombow, very useful to use. I've also got some waterproof white pens as well, and these are those jelly roll ones, and permanent pens as well, which are waterproof pens, which I tend to use for pen and ink work. So pen and ink and watercolour, so pen and wash if you wish. So it's always worth having a selection of pens when you're working with something like this. It really is. Watercolour paper, now that's quite a personal thing really, isn't it? The one I tend to use most of the time is Bockingford. And this particular one is a cold pressed paper. I'm just trying to show you on there with one hand. So it's cold pressed paper, as you can see, and it's a Bockingford block. Now the beauty about it being a block is that it's glued all the way around by that little gap there. Look, that's obviously lifted since I've painted. I'll even give you a nice little arrow. Say, oh look, there's a gap there. And all you do is slide a palette knife all the way around to remove the watercolour sheet. Okay, remember it's glued all the way around there. So really useful for when you're doing lots of wetting wet washes, and it will dry nice and flat, or thereabouts anyway, afterwards, because it's glued down. So Bockingford is one. Let me just take you over here, look, to my little cupboard here. There you go. You ready? There's also Saunders Waterford, which I tend to use. I've got Bockingford there, as you can see on the top. So Saunders Waterford is one, and Arch as well is another good one I tend to use. And they're all cold pressed papers, which I tend to prefer. And by the way, there's no money in that. It's completely empty. All right, just out of interest. Now I tend to use half pans most of the time because I don't waste paint that way around. Because I'm using very small brushes, I do prefer half pans for that reason. But also they're highly concentrated as well. So all these pigments in here, by the way, they are dry, as you can see. They're very highly concentrated. And because they're highly concentrated, they'll last quite some time. They really will. So half pans are very beneficial when you're working on something such as that, which is obviously quite detailed. Watercolour paints. There we go. They're the ones I tend to use, and they're half pans by Winsor & Newton. I don't mind using other brands as well. I've used quite a variety of brands over the years, but I seem to stuck with Winsor & Newton because I've got used to using them more than anything. These are both the professional versions and also the student versions, so the common and professional. I tend to kind of mix and match really between the lot of them. The pigment within the half pans are quite highly concentrated, so they do last quite some time, they really do. And sometimes I'll even fill these half pans up with a little bit of tube paint. Alright, I'll pop a link to the top right hand corner of the screen there for you to give you some ideas what I mean by that. Now, I've got a variety of brushes on the go here, as you can see. Quite a variety. My favourite brush tends to be a size 00, which are these two just here. Okay, and the most favourite is this one. This is a Winsor & Newton Cotman Series 111. Link in the description down below, of course. Kind of give us some ideas which ones I tend to use. And these are not expensive. These are fairly cheap actually in comparison to some other brushes you can buy. And these are synthetic as well, so synthetic bristle brush. So I tend to use that for all the fine details I tend to use for my paintings, as you can see. So that's really useful for something like that. So that's one. Other than that, I've got a variety of brushes here from size 00 through to size 8, I think, is my kind of largest one, which I think is this one here. And that one is Rosemary & Co. Spotter Red Dot Series. Really nice brushes, and again synthetic. And they tend to be used for kind of larger washes, that sort of thing really. I don't often use that size brush really. Other brushes I've got, ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. I've got a variety of brushes all over the place here, as you can see. From big mop brushes like these here. This is a Pan Art one, for example. Really nice brush to use. Quite expensive as well, not something I would normally buy. So therefore I didn't buy that. That was given to me by Pan Art to do a review here on YouTube. Now if you do fancy learning how to paint wildlife in watercolour, like all of these paintings here, as you can see, and more as well, take a look at the link down below for Patreon. Oh, and also there's a free section on there as well where you can try before you buy. Just remember that link down below. So give it a go and let me know how you get on. Now there's one question you were thinking about asking me about, and that is my brush rack here. Now you think, well, I quite like that idea. Why have you got a brush rack like that? What's the benefit of having your brushes kind of facing down rather than traditionally, like in a water pot side of things like that, facing upwards? Well, I tend to have my brushes facing down because when you wash your brush out like so, and you dry it on some kitchen roll like that, there's still going to be some water residue inside that metal ferrule. The problem with that is that when the water soaks through the metal ferrule. Sometimes it gets into the wood and through the glue there, and it can damage and kind of break off the metal ferrule. I've had that happen to me more than once. And also, I want to make sure that if my brush is upright like that, the water will simply drain out of that metal ferrule through the bristles onto my wooden surface down there, my block at the bottom. I'll give it a wipe every now and then. You can put some kitchen roll down there or something like that. But it's a good way of kind of preserving your bristles on those brushes by having the water drain out. And of course, if you've not washed your brush out properly, you'll have paint still inside that metal ferrule and also still inside those bristles. So it's well worth having them hanging upside down for a change, or in my case, the right way around. That's the way I tend to believe it. Hence the brush rack, which I've got there. Now this one's been made for me, but my original design, which I made myself many years ago, I've got a link down in the description below for you for that. So take a look and see what you think, and maybe you might even make one of those yourself. Now very often when I'm filming, and I'm working on a painting that's quite repetitive in places, like working on the feathers here, I very often go to music within my videos. Not all the time, but sometimes I do. After explaining what I've got to do. So I've got a digital radio. Da-da-da. And that's what I listen to when I'm working on my painting, when all you hear is a little bit of music after I've shown you what to do on the painting and obviously how to do it as well. Then I get the radio going and sit, listen and relax, and maybe even have a cup of coffee as well. Now one thing we can't be short of, is shelving or storage for your art materials. Now my shelving behind here is something I made myself, just a little bit of a kind of bash it together in the garage jobby. That's all it simply is. And I just put that together basically. And this is where I tend to hang myself little notes when I'm working on something like the rooster, like the comb, the wattle and the hackle and all that sort of thing. Also my monitor, I'll go on about that in a bit. But anything such as my erasers, spare brushes and anything else I need to store there. I even have extra storage further down, as you know, where my brushes are. I tend to think about what can I store, where can I put things? And we know what we're like as artists, we tend to hoard things, don't we? We really do. So because of that, I've got to make sure I've got plenty of storage. Hence, the cupboard space for all of my storage around there. I know, I've got plenty of storage in this room. Now, how do I illuminate my painting surface when I'm filming? Let me give you some ideas here. You ready? Now, you probably saw this at the beginning. These are box lights. There you go. So box lights are really useful, but also take up one heck of a lot of space as well. And these are actually positioned on the wall, on some brackets I put up there, as you can see, next to my owl painting. There you go. So they are quite enormous. They really are. Very, very large lights. But they work really, really well. Now, the bulbs inside are massive. They really are large. But because it's got this sort of grille on the front here, it gives more of a diffused feel to the painting. So it doesn't kind of shine down any harsh light on your painting surface. It really doesn't. But really useful, these box lights, but you need plenty of room to be able to use them. You really do. So what you can get are the digital versions instead. So you can set the light's warmth, if you know what I mean. So the Kelvin range, as they call it. So you can really play with that with the more digital ones, but they're quite expensive. You're looking £200, £300 for a really decent set of two. But these are also classed as photography lights. If you go onto one of the shopping sites online and type in box lights, anything like that, and you should come across something like this. But make sure if you do buy something like that, you've got the space to kind of accommodate them. And also you need probably stands or wall mounts like I've got on my wall here. I also installed some spotlights up above as well. So quite a straightforward installation when I did those. But they're really useful because they're also daylight spots. So I get some sort of a natural light within the room, as well as my box lights, as you know here. But that is how I tend to illuminate my painting surface. And you can see, if I back up all the way, how bright it is down there when I'm working on one of my video tutorials for you. I tend to use a Canon M50. So Canon M for mother, and that's what that one is there, with a 200mm lens. Now this particular one is rigged through all the way via cables on the wall over my lighting at the top. And you can see I've got cables everywhere in this room, all the way down to my monitor down there. Now the monitor, as you can see, is just here. There's my arm in the way. And that's where I tend to kind of work from. So when I'm actually filming all the way up there, pointing down directly at the painting, I can see what the camera can see over there. So I can make sure that when I'm painting, I can see to make sure I've got everything on screen for you. Sometimes I forget to look at the monitor there, but most of the time I tend to remember to look. So it's really useful to use. Otherwise I have to crane my neck and look all the way up to that camera up there to be able to see what I'm seeing down here, to be able to make sure that everything is on screen. So there you go. That's how I tend to rig things up. Now the Canon M50 is a small camera. It's sort of an entry-level DSLR camera. That's all it simply is. So because it's small, it's also lightweight as well with a crop sensor. So if you know what that is, you know what I mean. And it's very handy to use because of the weight, and also because I'm only using a 200mm lens there, which means I can zoom into that painting quite well. So if I zoom into there, I'll just show you on there, look, I can really zoom in on that screen there, as you can see. Working on a manual focus in this case. Because one thing I don't want it to do is to focus on my hand. I want it to focus on the painting. But there's a lot of different cameras on the market, so it's well worth looking around and see what you can find. Now I've also got this rigged up to a spare battery, so this isn't just on a battery within the camera. You can see that I've got a lead going directly into the back of the camera here. And that's got a dummy battery in there with a hole in it. And this lead goes all the way along, my bar there, look, all the way along, and down to that little battery pack down there. And that'll last me probably about 3 days to film in. And that one, by the way, is one made by Anker. Now the bar, which is holding the camera on, I've made a couple of brackets up. So it's kind of homemade brackets now that can go a little bit higher, as you can see. And they simply clamp onto that bar. Now this bar is designed for sort of backdrops for photography studios. So you can drape something like material, scenery, green screen, anything like that over the top of that. So it's really useful, but I tend to use it for my camera. And that is also telescopic, so that's why it fits my walls precisely. Now I tend to use quite a powerful computer, and the reason why is because of the fact I've got to edit videos, and videos take up a lot of memory, a lot of space, a lot of power. They really do. So when I'm working on something like this one here, which I'm just kind of, well, you know the one, it's that one there, look. So I'm working on the screen at the moment. I've just started editing this one up. They're probably about a week's worth of work, by the way. I tend to make sure that the computer's got to have enough sort of, I don't know, guts within it to be able to do the job. And it certainly does. So when you're working with video editing, then you've got to make sure that your computer's got a reasonable speed to it, a reasonable processor, and some reasonable memory as well. And not forgetting plenty of space. Oh, yeah, I know. It takes a lot of space up, it really does. For recording the audio, which you hear in my videos, I've got a Blue mic. That's actually the name of it, by the way. Blue, as you can see there. So that's one I tend to use on a regular basis. And it's quite a nice microphone, actually. I do like that one. Now, when I do an outline drawing, I tend to scan that drawing on my printer here. It's a flatbed scanner. So just move that piece of paper out of the way. You can see it's a flatbed scanner for scanning, and it's also an Epson XP342. Quite a cheap printer, actually, to be honest with you. It's not an expensive thing whatsoever. And as you can see, if I pan around, this is just a spare bedroom. That's all it is. Now, if you do like this video, please let me know in the comments down below. And let me know if there's anything that you would add to my setup here to make it even better. So there you go, that'll give you some ideas of my painting area here. Now if you want to learn how to paint wildlife in watercolour like this lovely rooster here, I'll pop a link to the top right hand corner just up there. That one there. Alright, I'll see you there. Bye for now.